Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and new books. It's almost the end of July. Can you believe it? So it's time for new books in August. And if you're not familiar with this video, for the purpose of this video, TBR means to be released. And yes, thank you, commenters who educate me and tell me TBR in booktube terms means to be read. I know that. That's why I say for the purposes of this video, it's meant to mean to be released. I'm very educational today, am I not? Anyway, so what I do, if you haven't followed me until now, at the end of a month or the beginning of the next month, I look at the new releases, the upcoming new releases, so for August for this video, and then I just pick a couple, 4 or 5 that I find interesting, and I share them with you. And yes, I changed the angle of the camera ever so slightly so that you don't think I miss part of my head. I have a complete head. And I'm in a silly mood today, quite obviously. Okay, so enough of the silliness. Let's get on with the new books. And as always, we start with general fiction. And if you know me, you're probably not surprised at all by my pick. It's Akwekwe Emezi's new book, The Death of Vivek Oji, which will come out on the 4th of August. Akwekwe Emezi is a Nigerian Igbo writer, and use the right pronoun there, and their last novel for adults, Freshwater, blew me away. I thought it was fantastic. So when I saw that Emezi has a new book coming out, it had to make the way on the TBR. I didn't even know back then what it was about, but it is obviously about a person called Vivek. Vivek, the book is again set in Nigeria, in the northeastern part of Nigeria, and Vivek is what we in Western terms probably would call a strange child. He has blackouts, and sometimes the border, the limits between himself and the surroundings seem to blur for himself. So it is the story of his life from childhood, adolescence, and into adulthood, his relationship with his best friend, a cousin, and there is also some dramatic event happening. That's what I understood from the blurb. But again, I tell you this because that's what I know about the book, but I would have picked this book for the TBR even if I hadn't known anything about the story, because Freshwater was such an amazing experience for me. I know not everybody loved it, but I thought it was a brilliant debut novel. So I know that Akwekwe Emezi also published a book in between. It's called Pet, a young adult book, which I haven't read because I hardly ever read young adult. It's not to mean that as anything wrong with people who read young adult. It's just not for me. But this is another novel for adults, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Next up is nonfiction. And for this category, I picked the new book by Isabel Wilkerson, Cast. The Origins of Our Discontent, which will come out on the 11th of August. Isabel Wilkerson is an US American journalist and author, and you probably either read or heard of her previous book, which she published 10 years ago, The Warmth of Other Suns, and sons not in sons and daughters, but in moon and sun, in which she explored the migration movement of Black Americans from the South to the North and the West. This book, again, tackles a very important subject of race and class. And as far as I understood, Wilkerson makes a claim that there is a caste system that goes, a hierarchy in US American society that goes beyond gender and race and class, or combines maybe these categories, and is similar to a caste system like in India. I mean, it sounded fascinating. It sounded like something quite new, the approach, the angle that Isabel Wilkerson takes here. And it is about a subject that I'm interested and care deeply about. So it was obvious that this book would make the TBR in the category nonfiction. Next, we move back to fiction again, but then in the category translated fiction. And I have two books for you, translated fiction works, because it's the TBR for August. And as you probably know, August is Women in Translation Month. So I thought I should feature not one, but two translated works of fiction written by women. The first one is The Disaster Tourist. And now I have to look at the name, Yun Ko Eun, translated from the Korean by Lizzie Bueller. And this book will be published on the 4th of August with a bit of a cheat because publication date in August is the US edition. The UK edition already came out a couple of weeks ago. But who cares? You probably wouldn't even know if I hadn't told you. So anyway, it's set in Korea, and it's about Yona, a young woman who works for a travel agency. And when she encounters sexual harassment at work, she complains to her boss, but they want to just, sweep it under the carpet, as is often the case. And they offer her as a compensation a trip, a very luxurious trip, one of the favorite trips that she sells, to a deserted island. And I should also say this travel agency specializes not just in normal vacation, but in a sort of type of adventure vacations. Anyway, Yona takes this quote-unquote compensation and goes to that island, and things go horribly wrong from there. That's all I'm going to say. It's marketed as an eco-thriller, so it has a literary thriller element to it. If that's not your thing, then this book is probably not for you. But I read crime fiction as well, and I like a thriller element if it's well done in literary fiction as well. So, The Disaster Tourist, and again, looking down to the name, by Yun Ko Eun. Sorry for the weird break just now. That was the doorbell. Anyway, The Disaster Tourist, coming out on the 4th of August in the US, and the UK has already published it a couple of weeks ago. And the second book in the category translated fiction is a novella from a Colombian author, Pilar Quintana, The Bitch, translated from the Spanish by Lisa Dillman, and it will also come out on the 4th of August. As I said, Quintana is a Colombian author, and she has published previous novels. I don't know whether they have been translated into English. I haven't read her. And The Bitch is about a dog, as you can probably gather from the cover photo. It's not bitch as in woman, but bitch as in a female dog. It's set in a coastal village, and you have the main protagonist is middle-aged woman, wife of a fisherman who doesn't have any children. I mean, they both don't have. And she decides to adopt a puppy. And then the book, or the novella, because it's just about 120 pages, is about the relationship between the woman and her dog. Now, I have to say, I'm not normally I was really not interested in books about women and dogs and stuff. But last year I read Sigrid Nunez's book, The Friend, which won the Pulitzer. And also about a woman and a dog. In The Friend, the woman inherits, quote unquote, the dog from a friend who died. And I really liked it. So I thought, well, maybe I should get over myself with this thing that I don't want to read about relationships between a woman and a dog. And this sounded different, also because of the setting, this fisher man's wife, and the quite harsh surroundings, as I understood it, and it's a novella, so I chose it as the second pick in the category translated fiction for the August TBR. And also, I'm really not on top of my game today. I'm a bit tired in my head, obviously, because Sigrid Nunez's book The Friend, published in 2018, didn't win the Pulitzer, it won the National Book Award in 2018. We want to get our facts straight, even in this time and age now, don't we? And as always, we end the TBR with a sci-fi. And for August, I picked the first book in a duology written by Laura Lamb and Elizabeth May, Seven Devils, which will come out also on the 4th of August. 4th of August seems to be the main publication date for the books I pick, at least. Laura Lamb, I don't know Elizabeth May. She writes, or she wrote as a solo author, mainly YA fantasy books. But I do know Laura Lamb, a science fiction writer whom I quite like. I read a couple of her previous works, Goldilocks, and also a previous series. And I mean, she's not like, my favorite sci-fi author ever, but I liked her work. And this one caught my attention because it's set out to be a feminist space opera duology. Hey, what more do you want? And the seven devils of the title are seven women fighting in a resistance to overthrow an evil empire. Of course, that's what you get when you have space opera. But I thought the idea of having, strong female protagonists, a female resistance, a little bit of a feminist touch, that caught my attention, and that, given together with the fact that at least I know one of the two authors from previous books, made it that Seven Devils sounded interesting enough to be included in the August TBR. So those were the books that I found interesting that will be published in August. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're all still safe and healthy. As always, let me know in the comments whether you are interested in any of the books that I featured here, and I will talk to you soon in the next one.